Okay, I'm going to call the meeting to order. This is the Board of Selectmen meeting of June 14th, 2022 at 6:30 PM. President is myself, Bob Carlson, the first selectman, Selectman Brett Mastriani, and Selectwoman Nicole Porter. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, are there any public comments? Are there any public? No. I see no public comments at this time, so we'll move on to selectmen comments. Are there any comments by the selectmen that we're not going to cover later on in the agenda? None from Nicole. Brett?
I have just some comments about the RFP that's out for the school grounds, and I don't know if I can talk about it now or I can talk about it during when we talk about the joint services.
Why don't you talk about it now, because the joint services conversation is going to be geared towards the financial side more so than the, you're talking about the RFP for the grounds?
Yes.
Yeah, so why don't we talk about it now?
All right, so I have some concerns on that contract. When I was looking through the RFP, it talks about now that the school is looking for an outside vendor compared to a employee to do the grounds maintenance of the high school, elementary school property. One of the lines in there states that the contractor will be able to use the school-owned equipment. And a question arose whether who would maintain that equipment. And the response from the school was that the town, if the contractor couldn't maintain it, if it was something larger, that the town would be then responsible to fix it, the town highway garage. And I'm concerned that if that hasn't been discussed, it puts some liability on the town if something were to go wrong with that piece of equipment after we fixed it. I think it's one thing when it's a town employee that's using the equipment, but when we're having outside contractors and vendors just use the equipment that we're repairing, I think we could have some potential liability there. When I read through the RFP, it talks about indemnifying the school district, but it doesn't say anything about the town. So I am concerned about that. I understand that in the past, if something were to go wrong, that the town garage would fix it, but that was when it was a town employee. So I don't know if that's something that, Bob, you'd like to address with them before they're supposed to award it tomorrow according to the agenda. But I think that's a big risk for the town.
But I think in the RFP, there was actually a contradiction that they spoke on one area that the contractor would bring in his own equipment, and then almost on the same page they're saying, but you can use town equipment. So
Correct.
I will be addressing it I'm making notes for everything that you give me today and Nicole gives me for the 8 o'clock Thursday morning meeting, but because there's a contradiction, they might be able to award it, but I can talk to them. I can try to get a hold of Christine tonight actually and let her know that there's a issue with that.
Yeah, I just worry before they award it, we should hammer that out a little
But
bit.
there is a contradiction in the
You're
RFP,
right.
correct? So
You have the first paragraph says that whoever wins is responsible for all their, to provide the equipment and the
I'll send her an email
material.
tonight noting that there's that contradiction. Do you have a copy of the RFP? Or if not, if I can get one from,
Yeah, it's on the town website. I can
I'll
email it
just-
to you.
yeah, I'll just,
I'll do it right now.
okay, thanks. Okay, anything else, Brett?
No, that was it.
Okay, first selectman comments. I just want to let you know, I was in the building today with the liquidating company Adams. We started tagging quite a bit of material. I was here with Donnie and Alan from the highway department. They've already moved quite a bit over to the cafeteria. There's a lot in the first floor of this building, of the two-story wing, that has been tagged but not moved yet. There's going to be an online auction. They think they can get rid of quite a bit of material for us. When that gets done, we're going to call another third party in that will can take what's left, chairs, desks, and so on, because they're not doing a lot with chairs and desks. And they think there's a company that will send that over to Haiti or Dominican Republic. I mean, at a price. We won't have to pay for it. They'll make the money. They'll have to make money on it because they're gonna have to put it on cargo ships, but at least it'll be out of here. And then what's left after that, even before that, Christine had mentioned, and I think I agree, it will reach out again to the local daycares and schools like the Christian Academy and say, hey, free.
Just, yeah,
Just,
get it.
you want something before it disappears. So
How is, so Adams, Liquidator, how is that working?
So we're going to pay if they sell $17,000 or less materials, we pay, it's $2,500 fee plus travel, plus the fee to put it on the auction. The IT fee comes up to around $4,000. And I said to them, are you sure? Because if you're not selling $4,000 worth of material, I don't want to have to pay you $4,000.
Yeah.
Said, oh no, this will be well over that. Now, if it goes over 17,000, it shifts to a 15% commission they make on whatever they sell. But they think they're gonna have that sold by just a walk-in cooler loan. They'll think they're gonna get 5,000 or 6,000 for it, so.
Okay.
So hopefully, when it's all said and done, it'll be a nice nut of money that we can put into the town's coffers, and it's out of the building, so. Okay, old business, talking about the demolition of the one-story wing. Gary Nino was in, I had him review the contracts. I've spoken with the low contract Best Tech on at least 3 occasions, just to make sure that nothing's left on the table. That we don't have some sort of an issue halfway through the project when we realize that even though it was supposed to cost $689,000, now there's another $200,000 that we didn't account for. There is a question about the wall, how they want to do the wall. I have to speak to them about that. We did tell contractors that they could look at other ways to do things, patching the wall versus building a new one. We sent a copy of the Best Tech bid to the second place bidder because they asked for it, which is Stanford Wrecking. Christine, other than them to bring up the wall, there was nothing else they could find that wrong, which is great, because they were $600,000 higher than Best Tech. So, and because we own the quote, we can hand that quote over to somebody else and have somebody else look at it. So there's nothing wrong by doing that. So the next step would be for us to award it, but we have some time now. I talked to the attorney. We do not have to take this to town meeting. And I'll tell you why. It's already went through 2 referendums, and it was listed on both referendums, one in 2016 that passed by 3 votes, and then again in the 2018 referendum after we had the petition, and that passed almost by a 2-to-1 ratio. And then some people would say, well, it's 2018 was 3 years ago. Yeah, but we had the community conversation in January of this year, which overwhelmingly the demolition was still at top of mind, and we just floated out on the referendum the question, should we put $1 million of ARPA funding? Which, again, even though it was a low vote count, it did pass 2-to-1. So the attorney felt with the new things we have done in the last 6 months, as well as the 2 referendums that did pass, there was no need to go. The town's already approved this 4 times, basically. There's no need to go back. So that gives us a little bit of breathing room. That means we don't have to have it on the town meeting on the 27th. So what I thought I'd do is, there was questions that were brought up by Treasurer Murphy, actually, about clerk of the works. So we're looking into now, RFP on that. I also talked to someone in town that did this as a living. He's retired now, but asked him if he was interested in doing it again. Charlie Smith, he did it for Pfizer. Then we want to look at the contract again as far as penalties, because that was brought up. If we go past a certain date, would there be a penalty clause in the contract? And payment schedule. You never want a contractor to be ahead of you on the payment schedule. If they've been paid and they only have, say, $100,000 left coming in from the contract, but there's $300,000 worth of work to be done, why would you do it? So it's a losing. So we have to make sure that we have a contract written up that we'll have the attorney look at before we decide. I would think that our next meeting, what I'd like to do is, because that'll give me more time to make a few additional phone calls and just make sure all the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted. Although I'm 90% of the way there now on the low bid. I'd like to finally just vote on this and go forward with that bid. So, any other comments or questions?
Just interested that, uh, option B, you gave
And we
option
can,
A.
and we can call them by name now. since
Okay.
So that was
So,
staff directing?
So you gave Stamford the bid for Best Tech.
Mhm.
And you're saying, so they basically said they can't see that they've left anything out, but did they happen to comment on why some of the bids came in
No.
so
no.
lower than,
And I thought it was a great idea to send it to them, and who would best look at this than the person who came in
Right,
second
yeah.
place? And we can do it legally. So when they came back and they called Christine and all they could go back with, they didn't include the new wall. They did a patch job versus building a new wall. But we know that that new wall wouldn't cost $600,000.
Yeah.
And if they can patch it and we paint it and it looks fine and it's weather tight, I mean, so do we need to spend that kind of money? And I can say to Best Tech also, but what would it cost us for you to put the wall in? If they say 50,000, we're still $250,000 ahead
Yeah.
of the $1 million.
and they didn't, I mean, obviously their bid's been submitted, but they didn't budge or say, I don't know the rules.
Are we talking
Once all
about-
the
are we-
bids are in, can you revise yours and say,
No, so no, the bid is in, but I can say if we award that bid, what would you charge me now to build
Yeah.
that wall? If they say $600,000, then we'll probably say no, patch it.
yeah, okay. Well, that does make me feel better that somebody else in the business took a look at it and
Yeah.
appears to,
And Gary and Nino looked at it and, and I said, I've made 3 phone calls to the Best Tech company and, I'm confident that he's told me there's nothing there, Bob. I promise you will not get another bill for X number of dollars. So, and I called Downs, they gave them a really good referral after doing the work on the elementary school.
Yep.
So they have done work in town.
Yep.
So I'm pretty confident.
I just have a question. Where does it show the difference in the wall? So if I read it, it says that they're bidding as the RFP was presented. And under alternative ideas, I don't see anything. So where does it talk about? Oh,
I
patch
don't know
on the
where
wall.
I don't know where Stanford saw it. You're looking at Best Tech now. I don't have them with me, so.
yeah, I'm looking at it now and it doesn't show any, I mean, it says they're bidding on the project as the RFP was written. I don't see anything that
Do you see anywhere
uses-
in the RFP that it actually described how the wall was going to be built?
I don't have that RFP in front of me, though. I have the bids in front of me. I don't have the actual written RFP.
I don't know if they saw it in the,
I mean,
in the
it
equipment.
was in the plans.
Right,
Those
and
are-
I know others that bid on it stated that the wall was quite a wall with a brick facade on the outside and things like that. But if that's what's in the bid, I guess I'm lost as where it would show that they're not doing it to that.
All
um,
that Stanford
capacity.
Wrecking said was, we don't see that they have a building permit and a subcontractor to build the new wall where the existing wing is to be removed, drawing BE.1.0 attached. And that's the schematic for the wall.
Okay, so they're assuming that they don't have that. Because if I read the bid as it's written, it says it's bidding as our RFP in one lump sum. So, okay. So you're just gonna check to make sure
I'm
they
gonna
bid
talk
the
to 'em
wall
about
is
the-
correct?
I'm gonna talk to them about the wall, and I'm gonna have, I want to talk about getting a RFP out to get a clerk of the works. And we'll work on a contract.
But we don't need to wait for the clerk of the works to
You don't, I
award
mean,
this, correct?
no, if you wanted to vote and award it tonight, you could. I would just like to do a little bit more due diligence on it.
Okay.
So we're not up against the clock with the June.
So we're not up to, you're right, we're not up against clock with a town meeting, so, okay. Unless we go with one of the other bidders.
Right. And what I've talked to, I talked to Gary and Nino about it, who did this for a living also. He said that the 5 to 6 month timeframe we get them to take this down is well more than they need. They should all be down in like 60 days. So. All right. Infinite Visions, 6B. So we know that we've spoken at the last meeting about Infinite Visions. We had Trial and Treasurer spoke about it. Since then, we have spoken to some additional towns. I actually spoke to Infinite Visions themselves. And at meeting, I'm speaking with them again tomorrow to let them know the outcome of our vote tonight, whether we're going to continue on with Infinite Visions or not. So I'm going to ask for comments from the other two selectmen before we move forward.
So you said that you had reached out to Infinite Visions.
I
You've
did.
talked to them already.
I did.
And
with
do they
Christine,
have
actually.
any kind of rationale for why the vendor cell was so much different than the actual product that we purchased?
One comment they made is that the salesperson we worked with is no longer with them. He works with Google now. So it wasn't standing behind it and it wasn't using it as an excuse, but it was just a statement that was put out there.
But nothing, none of the questions that you asked as far as coming through with things that were promised, it's kind of like a hard no at this point.
Her suggestion was that we hire a part-time person to run payroll for the town. And that would allow us to use all the resources of Infinite Visions. And if we hired a part-time person to do payroll, we would be paying more than we pay Prime Pay to outsource our payroll. I'm just telling you that was her
Yeah.
recommendation.
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out why having a full-time, because if we went with their, if we went with their payroll, then everything would be tied in. Okay, all right, I just answered my own question. So that's disappointing.
She did sign on more than one occasion. I totally understand where you're coming from. I get it. It's not easy. It's tough, smaller towns, it's a tougher transition to work in. On the school side, it seems to be less of an issue. But
But
yeah,
we-
there was
but-
not a lot of pushback from her as far as when I said it was still your customer, because even if we don't do it, you're going to have the school working with you. And this might be a better fit for us to not continue on. We've already put close to $20,000 into this, not counting the payroll that we paid both Christine and Susan to train on this, as well as Jim to a point. And then to throw another 40,000 at this point doesn't make sense for a small town to know when we get to where we want to go, it's not a complete package.
And she had, so there was a conversation about, we are contemplating not following through with
I'm
this.
calling her tomorrow to let her know that I told her there's a vote on tonight's
Okay.
meeting, and I'll tell you tomorrow whether we're going to be,
And she
Same.
offered nothing else as far as no assurity that
Not
we
really.
would be held to additional money, the contract, nothing. Okay.
So did you get clarification that they won't come after us for the money? Do we have a guarantee of that?
we don't have a guarantee of that at this point. We know we're probably not going to recoup any of the $20,000 we already spent, but our hope is to get out of the contract with a future $40,000.
Okay, so we
Okay,
don't have that.
Yeah, so I was hoping for our vote tonight that we would know that fact.
So the contract that we signed for the 60,000 is for, the bulk of it is for training hours. I don't see how they could charge us for training hours that their staff did not do.
I agree. But I'd like the absolute of that they tell us.
So why don't we do this? What if we voted, if you decide as a board to vote to not go on with Infinite Visions pending that we are able to get out of the contract?
If that's a legal vote, I would feel better with that. I mean, there's a big difference between just getting out of the $40,000 that is left and having them hold us to that versus them suing us because we're backing out of a contract that we've already signed, kind of a deal. But I'm hoping that if she was reasonable when you were talking to her, that she would be on the up and up and say, hey, listen, if you guys are even contemplating backing out of the contract, I just have to let you know that.
So let's do this. We have a meeting coming up on Friday because we have to call for the town meeting. We haven't set a time for that yet. I think you were looking at maybe Friday morning. I'm meeting with them I'm talking to her tomorrow. So when
Yeah,
I get
I-
that information, we move
yeah.
this over to Friday's meeting and then we just make the decision then.
Yeah,
I'm
Yeah.
supposed to have Infinite Visions from 9 to 4 on Friday. So we really need to make a decision so we can cancel that.
Well, why don't we have our meeting before then? I think Nicole wanted to have it
I-
early Friday morning.
so I'm
right?
off Friday because we're leaving town on vacation. I can easily sign on as early.
Why
as
couldn't
she
we meet at
can.
8 o'clock?
They could still charge us for it because we're taking up their staff hours and they're not
Yeah.
booking with someone else.
So can't we cancel it for now?
We
for
can,
Fridays.
But again, if we're going to move forward with this, now we're canceling 2 training sessions.
I understand that, but I'm not comfortable signing without that piece of information, because if we say, yes, go ahead, that's a great idea, but they still charge us $40,000, then as looking out for the taxpayers' dollars, I can't
No, I agree with you.
vote on that.
All right, so I agree with you on that. On the other hand, looking out for the taxpayer dollars, I don't want to continue to, if we can get out of it, I don't want to continue paying $40,000 for something that if we
Yeah.
can get out of it without penalty. So I would argue that same point with your point, that keeping the taxpayers' dollars in mind, if we can get out of that contract without having to pay any additional monies, then we should get out of it.
So are you asking for a motion based on you getting out of the contract?
No,
Is that what?
no, what I want to do is, I don't care if we have to cancel the training meeting on Friday. I'm gonna talk to her tomorrow. I'm gonna say to her, listen, we as a board decide that we'd like to discontinue working with Infinite Visions. And I want to know how will that affect us as far as the contract? Will there be any kind of penalty? No. So on, if she says, no, you'll be able to get out of the contract, then we can vote on it on Friday.
I mean, I do wish that if they did make false promises, that we had pushback to get some of our money back, but I understand if that's not the avenue we want to go down, we're not going to push for it.
Well, we'd probably have to get attorneys involved, and our attorney fees are already high at this point anyway, so.
I mean,
Yeah,
the money we've paid so far has been for training. It's not like we've been paying necessarily towards a contract.
Mm.
So to Christine's point, the training's taken place. They've dedicated employees to the hours. Now, if they were a good company that cared about their reputation, then you would think that they would want to, you know, make peace, especially
Right.
since we're going to continue.
or credit
the
it
Board of
towards the
Ed, or
school bill,
correct.
something.
Yeah,
Well, don't forget too, the schools on Infinite Visions, and with everything that's happening on the Board of Ed side, which we'll be talking about later, it probably is good that we went through some training on the Infinite Visions on the town side.
yes, yeah. I mean, I will go on record as saying I am in favor of canceling the contract. I don't agree with moving forward with something that is not going to give us what we need. I also agree that I would like to wait until Friday to vote on it based on your conversation with them. And Christine, what's like the worst? So if we cancel, let's just say worst case scenario, they say that we're going to pay a penalty for getting out of the contract, lawsuit, like worst case scenario, and we have to move forward. We decide as a board that we're going to move forward. Can't we just make up those 2 training sessions that would end up being canceled? I know it would probably push out our go live date. And
So we can't push out our go live date. If we're going with the software,
that's
we
right,
have to start with
because
the
checks.
beginning of the fiscal
Yeah,
year.
that's right.
We have to order the check stock.
Yep.
And our trainer, her schedule is booked out months in advance. So if we cancel with her and need additional trainings, they might be able to get us in with a different trainer. But I know anytime we talk about any changes, Joan is a very popular trainer and she is booked out for months and months.
Okay.
I just think if they sold as a based on falsehoods, then there's some onus on them. I
agree,
think there's,
especially if this woman that you talked to the other day had some ownership for it, like she understands where we're coming from
because
and our challenges.
And I mean, I have to say, I am a little concerned that we went through 2 town meetings on this. We went through presentations. So I went back and I watched the presentation to the Selectmen, presentation to the Board of Finance. I was actually on the Board of Finance when that happened. And then at the town meeting. And a lot of the push for it was we needed updated technology. We needed to merge off of QuickBooks because QuickBooks wasn't suitable for our town, and all the wonderful things this would do. And it seemed like there were a lot of people on board with it at that time. So I don't take this vote lightly with all that talk prior, but I do understand that if it's not doing what was promised, then there's no need to continue.
I think I remember also that the transparency of having things flow over nicely from Board of Ed to the town was a big seller
Yeah.
too. And
So-
if that's not something that we're getting to the degree we thought we were going to,
Yeah. I think you do. So if you listen to the words carefully of what his presentation was, I think we do get a good chunk of it. So he basically said you'd need separate logins to access some of that information from the town database or the school database to transition it. He also stated that on the transparency aspect of on having those spreadsheets on the website instead of having OpenGov, that they would be able to run those reports and send them to post them on our website. It didn't talk about them having a portal.
On that particular meeting, that was how he phrased it. In prior meetings, he had said portal, and he had said login for the townspeople to view the data in real time. He had said that. I don't know if it was a recorded meeting, but it was at prior meetings and trainings.
Gotcha. So I wish that was on the
Yeah,
recorded
we
town
could've
meeting,
had
because then we can
something.
push back. So just a little bit more on this. If we do go to change, I think maybe we want to look at how we will be reporting out to the residents in the future. I mentioned to Christine, there's a company called ClearGov, which is like OpenGov, but it's different. And a lot of the towns I've been looking at recently, looking at some of the administration stuff, are now switching to it. It seems to be more cost effective and more robust than OpenGov was, but it might be something in the next, I don't know how long we look at that, because it does give the residents something to monitor our reports. It also actually gives, pretty much writes our annual report based on our budget together. So, and if it's easier, I don't mind making a motion to cancel the contract based on no penalties. I'm okay with that. So you can, when you talk to her tomorrow, you can say, okay, well, there's no penalties there. We're canceling. Otherwise, I think we need to talk to an attorney at that point.
So if you guys are comfortable with that, I think if we went that route, and then at the Friday meeting, we can have Infinite Vision's update on the agenda, and then Bob can report out on what his conversation
fine with
was.
I'm comfortable with that.
yep, me too.
So are you proposing to put a motion into a vote tonight pending my discussion with her tomorrow as
Yep.
far as there's any additional penalties?
Yeah,
Penalties.
I'll make a motion to stop moving forward with Infinite Visions, as long as we are penalty-free from the contract and we can get out of it on the municipal side without any issues or any further costs.
Yep, I second.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor. We have a first and a second. We discussed it. Is there any additional discussion? Is anyone online or in the audience that would like to add to this discussion? Okay, seeing none, hearing none. All those in favor of the motion as put forth by Brett Mastriani, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, I will talk to her tomorrow, report back to you on Friday, and we'll decide where we're going in. I did talk to ClearGov when I was at a seminar earlier this year. They did seem like a company that might be worthwhile, but just to jump from one to another at this point, I think we need to do a little more investigation. I think so there's a different first selectman and a different Board of Ed chair. And I think that maybe the due diligence wasn't done back then. It sounded great, but now we know what to look for and ask the questions that didn't work on this one. So to look at somebody like ClearGov, who does get good reviews from other towns, I think it's a different type of questioning we can do now because we've gone through the process.
Yeah, and that's a budgeting software and transparency software. But I want to say, when I reviewed the stuff regarding Infinite Visions, it was brought up that there was due diligence done and it was investigated at that presentation by the selectmen.
Okay.
But I think it was all through Learn is who.
Yeah,
quoted.
I did attend all of the demos and information sessions that Learn had. They had done an RFP with multiple districts and towns because a lot of schools were transitioning off of Phoenix since it was sunsetting as a product for the schools. So I did go for the presentations from Munis, from Alio, from Infinite Visions, and there may have been a fourth one as well. From what they showed us at the demos, and again, they targeted it more towards the schools, it did seem like it was a product that would work. The majority of the people that we've spoken to since in the last few weeks were all a part of that cohort that signed on at the same time. So we wouldn't have been able to talk to people that were actively using it because they hadn't just made their decision yet either. And I think, if we did in-house payroll, it would be a different story, but at this time we don't, and I feel it's not the direction that we need to go.
Just a cross-check, did the 60,000 for this come from ARPA? Okay, I remember it was just an appropriations that we had to go
Undesignated fund,
for.
yeah.
Okay,
Which means that any monies would go back and
Yeah.
undesignated. Okay, nothing else on Infinite Visions. Number 7, Administrative Services, Town and School Discussion. What I'll do on this is, as you know, I'm meeting with Christine Wagner, Christine Dias, the new superintendent, myself, and Paul Simon are meeting Thursday morning at 8 o'clock to have a meeting to go through the school and in the town and what the relationship's going to be moving forward now that their central office is pretty much totally empty. So with that said, knowing I'm going to have that meeting and it's not a full board meeting with all boards and commissions being there, meaning Board of Ed, Board of Finance, Board of Selectmen. The reason for that, we added up the number of attendees. There would be 21 attendees at that meeting. And if you look at some of the meetings in the past, when we've had such large attendance, nothing seems to get done, and 1-hour meetings turn into 4-hour meetings. So at this point, it'll be the 3 board chairs, Christina, the new superintendent. I will take information from both you and Brett to bring to the meeting. And then I will bring the information back to you after the meeting, which we could talk about on Friday. And also Christine, then we'll go back to her board, and Paul will go back to his board. Hopefully he's there soliciting questions and information too from their board members. So thought that was the best way to handle it at this point, because we're kind of under the gun. They've got hiring that they want to be doing. And also it's a time right now that the town could look at this and possibly make some changes for the future. So Brett and Nicole, at any time, let me know who wants to begin. I'll be glad to take notes on what it is that you'd like to see happen.
So I've done a lot of research on this. over
Really?
the-
Really?
Yeah, really, really, lots of research.
How many times have you said that to me already?
I know. And I'll give you guys this white paper from the Connecticut Association of School Business Officials that actually talks about shared services and the research they've done on it. So I made a copy for each. You can pass that one down. And I'll just give you some highlights that I've marked. And they talk about this, and this is some of the struggles I think we see here is Connecticut. So it says Connecticut has a long history of seeking ways to reduce costs through cooperation. But there's also a long tradition in New England of not wanting to lose local control. Often shared services and the concept of local control collide, and sometimes savings get lost in the result. So as we go through these discussions, it says these opportunities to be gained in reviewing various aspects of consolidation or shared services. The challenge is to keep the process free of politics and those looking to protect turf and or build an empire. It's clear from our interviews and experience from school business officials and municipal officials that collaboration can be most effective when good planning takes place, egos are put aside, and the planners are united in their mindset of public service first. So I know there has been some pushback on some of this discussion. But when you read through these white papers that I believe the current or former, soon to be former business manager for the town is a member of, it really goes deep dives into different services. Financial services is one of them. It also talks about grounds, insurance, parks with athletic fields, maintaining the town as well. So there's a lot that goes into it. So if you guys want to read through it, but when you read through it, you'll see a lot of the same things that we talk about in town. Whether we talk about the town prior shared services for the grounds and they didn't look as good. Well, there's a whole story about the same thing in a different town. But it also talks about IT departments being shared. But the finance department, if the last page of what I gave you talks about, it's a sample of Columbia Board of Education in the town of Columbia and what their contract looks like between the two. And most of these, I think almost all of them, given out that if this was something we decided to do, that if it was figured that it wasn't going to work, you can branch back into your own departments. I talked to 2 first selectmen of different towns. So I talked to East Haddam and also Brooklyn's first selectman. And we went over pros and cons of what works, what doesn't work. Their towns are slightly larger than ours with budget. One of the towns doesn't have a high school, but the other town does. But some of the key points that they brought up was the communication aspect of it is fantastic. When it comes to budgeting, when it comes to one town, actually, their whole finance department is one building or one department. So they cross-train everyone. So the way they have a structure, they have a director of finance that oversees both the town and school side. And then they also have either a business manager and bookkeeper in the town, but it's a lower reduced salary, or some of them have part-time people that fill in for some of those roles. And then the director is like that bridge gap to make sure everything's going smooth, and they have their own roles. But they state that the cross-training is key, especially and we talk about how we struggle in small towns to have enough staff but not be overstaffed. And they found that the cross-training is very beneficial. So if vacations occur, or if we see what's happening now, we lose a bunch of people all at once, other people can step up to do payroll, can do the accounts payable, and make sure things are going smoothly. And I want to say this is a newer concept. I know there were some old towns that have done it before, but actually the state passed a bill in 2017 allowing this to happen because it was becoming more and more of questioned. And by state statute, it didn't technically address whether a town could share one, but in 2017, they did that. And with that, there were some other things that they passed, which were interesting, and where a shared business finance director would make things smooth. So even when it comes to goods and services, in that bill, it requires the Board of Ed, once they put something out to bid, that they consult with the legislative body of the municipality to see if the town offers those goods and services or has contracts for those goods and services, to see if we're getting a better deal or if we can provide those services less expensive, which I thought was interesting. But the bill wording is, it gives the Board of Ed and municipality a new statutory provision that permits a municipality, upon the approval of its legislative body and local Board of Education, to enter into a cooperative agreement relating to the performance of the administration and central office functions for the municipality and Board of Education. So with that, and part of that, the talks, when you research the reasoning behind it, it was for some of the towns that didn't want to regionalize or didn't want to share services with another school district, it gave them other cost-cutting methods to try to do that locally. And when you look at the structure now, something like that RFP that just went out, if for the school grounds, if we had a finance person that oversaw both sides, they would be able to look at the pros and cons of what's in there. Is the town covered? Are we agreeing to, first of all, to do the maintenance, but also on the reporting side. So if you look at these statutes, quarterly on the website, we're supposed to report on our town website as well, the Board of Education's budget and expenses for that quarter. There hasn't been one of those updated since last year. Also, any kind of administrative hire contract, so the superintendent, the vice principal, any of those contracts, within 30 days, those contracts, once signed, are supposed to be on the town website for the residents to be able to see, just like the teacher's contracts on there. None of those are on the website still. The only one is the teacher's contract. The administrator's contract is from 2021. So some of this would help streamline that on the communication side, and talking to, like I said, the other selectmen in different towns. Some of them said it took a little while to see a cost savings. I don't believe it cost any of them more money, but with the efficiency, they started saving money, especially when it came to purchasing things like that. Last year, Monroe just switched to it. And I reached out to them, they weren't able to, we played phone tag for a day or two and we haven't connected, but they did a bunch of research, and now they're a town with a $96 million budget. So they had a few more tiers in there of assistance. But if you broke that down on a smaller scale, it could definitely work. But if you read some of the quotes that they had, their superintendent of schools told the town council he believes the benefits of a new joint finance director position outweigh any drawbacks. The communication is great, and the credibility between the town and the Board of Education, he said, over the years, I think there was a lot of finger pointing on both sides. I can never thank the new business manager for all the work he's done. He's a godsend. The towns that they did talk to said they had no regrets, no downside to the financial structure. It was a no-brainer. It's working, and it's working very well. So when you look into it, and even in that study I gave you, there was always a little pushback, or it was difficult to have that sit down. I talked to some towns, one of the towns that was transitioning to it, and they were in a situation kind of like us, with there was some influx, and they had their town manager do some of the accounting while they were figuring this out. They also had to hire some temps in the meantime to make sure everything was going smoothly until they were up and running. The only downside I heard was from one of the towns, it was Brooklyn, who they had a very qualified person leave, and it was tough for them to find somebody that could do it well right off the bat. So they took outside people. So they had high turnover for about a 2-year period for that position. But he stated once you have that right person, it works seamlessly. So the reason I bring it up in all this information is because we've never looked at this reports before. I don't think the Board of Ed's ever looked at that report before. It's always been a no, no, no right off the bat. And with this huge transition and losing pretty much everyone in central office now, after the last resignation, I know timing isn't on our side, but at the same time, now is the time to look at positions. So some of the people said, you know, if you can't start direct, you can start with different roles. Look at all the roles and say, okay, well, we can do shared roles on this financial side of things, and then this, we can do this accounts payable like this, or you have a smaller business manager that handles those I can't even talk today after all this. After some of the little details that, you know, a business manager for a school that a municipal person might not see, but it's not a full-time role. So you can have part-time people that do certain parts of that business role in some of those contracting, whether it comes to transportation or whatever. But in the long term, everyone stated that the communication for the town, and especially on the budgeting side of things, and the confidence that the Board of Finance had after these transitions was well worth any issues in the beginning of starting it up.
Does the Board of Ed have this document?
I don't know. I gave one to my wife, who's on the Board of Ed when I printed it out.
Glad you explained that, yes.
But I also have some job descriptions from the other towns. But like I said, in all of the examples, it does give an out to say, hey, this isn't working. And the Sterling one, for instance, talks about how it's not merging. You're not taking this role and that role and just smushing them together without any support, because that would fail. You need support below that person to do some of these roles. Otherwise, it's overwhelming for anybody. And that's how it's structured in a lot of these. It says it right in there. These are, when you're reporting to the school, you're reporting to the superintendent and the Board of Education and then the town. But there are a lot of things that cross in the flow of information is what's smooth.
Great, thanks.
No problem.
Cole, tough act to follow there.
So, I mean, I definitely would like some time to kind of read this. I think so I see so many different ways that we can do this, right? So last meeting, I thought your suggestion was that we eliminate a position somewhere and just have somebody currently within town hall absorb that. And that, to me, I think we need to get a lot of feedback regarding what the capacity of the people that we currently have, and is that even possible? As I'm reading some of this, what was the town that we actually have a sample of the shared?
Is that Columbia?
Columbia. So they're talking about hiring a shared director of finance, but that each entity, the town would have its own person doing the work, and then the school would have its own person doing the work, and you'd have one director over both, helping with that communication. I don't know if that's adding additional people to the mix, because I don't know how we would make that work with the existing open positions that we have. So I think there's a lot of ways you can do this, and then you can just have cross-training, have just on the side cross-training, so that in a situation like this, because Christine has so much time on her hands, when we find ourselves in a situation where 95% of the central office in the school is now gone, that we have somebody that can carry through with that work. So cross-training is always a good idea. Always. It just gets you out of a bind when you're in it. But I think I want to look at it a little bit closer. I'm not going to lie. I think that we'll receive a lot of pushback just with the suggestion that we pose this and ask for their feedback. I'm beginning to understand, but I still don't understand why entities within our town sometimes tend to get so, I'll just say passionately advocating for themselves because they're afraid something's going to be taken away, or they're going to, we are one town. We are one group of mostly volunteers that are trying to have all these services come through. And I think there's a lot of benefit in having some shared cross-trained people to help with that, as long as there's really clear delineation of responsibility and reporting structure when it comes to whatever they're working on at the time. But I think there's any number of ways that we can do it. I agree with you. Certainly now is the time to have a conversation, because we find ourselves in a situation where we don't have a lot of people moving forward for the next school year. And obviously the Board of Ed is going to be wanting to move forward on this very quickly so that over the summer, they can get people up and running and they'll be in better shape by the start of school. But I think I'm still unclear about what structure might work for us in North Stonington and what kind of buy-in we would get from the other boards.
Right. And I guess I should be clear. I never, even at my last discussion, if it came off that way, I never thought that one person could just take over another role. I thought there would have to be some restructuring, and I read a little bit before then, and I've talked to a few people, not the selectmen prior to that. But since then, I talked to a lot more and did a lot more research. But everybody talks about it's more of a restructure.
Yeah.
And looking at those jobs and, okay, who does what and who can do what? And that's really what it comes down to. Just because someone's had that in their role for the past 10 years doesn't mean you can't shift things around. So that's where some of the towns have a bookkeeper in the school, a bookkeeper in the town, and a finance director, and then an HR director, an HR person that handles all the HR requirements and and making sure all the paperwork and the hiring. And some of it, actually Brooklyn told me that he got pushed back at once because that person worked out of their home because they didn't really need someone full-time for that role for their district. So in the beginning, he got pushed back, but come to find out, it actually worked pretty well. That person would come in when they want, but that person also had another job. So they figured it wasn't a full-time role for that HR director or the HR, I don't think they called it a director, but HR person. But all of it talks about basically restructuring, realigning. But I do think you're right. There's always been a little pushback and everybody wants to maintain their turf, but we're one town. And that's in part of the reason I think I brought it up here again was the Board of Education's role, and they do a great job, is to advocate and maintain a quality and great school system. Our role is to advocate for every resident in town and figure out how we can potentially maybe do things better, maybe save some money along the way, but more about efficiency. So even in the Board of Finance's roles, and I don't have the statement in front of me, but it talks about the Board of Finance in our form of government being able to make recommendations on the administration structure of the town to maximize efficiency. So that's all I'm asking is, let's have those conversations. So I was glad that Bob is scheduled to have that talk. So instead of what I asked for at that last meeting of, hey, can we send a letter to say, let's talk about it? There is a discussion that's going to happen.
No,
I
think
can
that's-
tell you, though, that there was already pushback from the chairman to basically say why it shouldn't happen before this meeting, which I have to say is a little disappointing that we're not going into this with open minds. And if at the end of all these discussions, it comes to find out there's nothing we can do, it's not going to go anywhere, we can honestly say to the public next budget cycle, when in the past we've always said, as we don't want to fire anybody or lay anyone off or just cut positions, but as people leave or retire, we will look at each position to see if
we could do it.
to see if there's
more
anything we can do for it.
Yeah.
Then we can move forward and say, we did it, we talked about it, and this is what the outcome. So I'm excited that Bob is going to meet with her, with Christine Wagner and Paul, the Board of Finance Chair. Christine, did you say Christine was in that meeting as well? And the superintendent, which I have to say, I met the superintendent at his welcome reception. He seems like a fantastic guy. And really, this is, part of the pushback is, well, you want to set up the new superintendent for success. So we don't want to take away any of his tools. Well, I look at it, we're trying to give him more tools. We're trying to come up with a solution that's more long-term. So next budget cycle, we're not fighting for dollars. We're trying to say, look how smoothly everything, the communication's there, the efficiency's there, the purchasing. And if somebody leaves, we're not worried that we're not going to get checks out in a few weeks.
Yeah, totally in favor of your meeting, and I think you probably know feedback from the two of us, and it should be an interesting meeting. And
So I think
look
the,
forward to hearing the feedback from it.
we're basically, the three of us are basically on the same page. I've looked at, we call it the Brooklyn model, but we've looked at that, and that's where you have the director of finance that covers the whole town, and then you have the business manager on the town side, and something like the business manager on the school side. If there's any, if the shuffling is going to take place on the town side, excuse me. So the reason is because they can hire a business manager and they can hire an accounting person, and that's what they have now. So they can hire those. They just don't have that person above the business manager. If we take someone from town and make that person the director of finance for the entire town, that person will have to then alleviate some of their duties they do now. So we need someone else to pick up that slack. If we take the accounting journalist and say, okay, now you have to pick up some slack from the admin finance director because she's no longer doing this, this, and this. Admin finance director means finance director and admin services in town. There's a lot that, in this case, Christine does in town that are not quite with what a finance director would do. So someone has to pick that up. My admin assistant may have to, we might have to talk about what does she, do we offer her a position maybe as full-time somewhere down the road? Or do we bring in a full-time person to do the admin assistant's job? Because similar to when Robin Rowe was there, she was there full-time. Because now they're gonna have to pick up some slack from both the accounting journalist and the admin finance. So there's more shuffling on our side than there is on the school side. They can pretty much go with a business manager and accounting person, just like they do now. But if there was a reporting line that we had someone above that, that was looking, rolling both the town and the school would make sense. I think that's probably the way I'll present it. That way they're not held up on the fact, well, we need to get a business manager now. That's fine, as long as we can change the reporting part of it.
Yeah.
It's not the people part, it's the reporting part. And as far as the cross-training, as soon as we heard that the business manager was leaving, I had a meeting with Christine and Susan, who's our account journalist. We started talking about that then. Like, wouldn't it be nice if you already knew what was going on that side more? So with this whole new regime of people coming into the board, the central office, it's a perfect time to start. I said, maybe we can send Christine and Susan over there for half a day once a month, and they can come to town hall for half a day once a month, just to see what each of them does. So yes, if there's prolonged sicknesses and vacations and
Yeah.
retirements, we can fill that.
Yeah.
That's the thing with a small town is you always need a bench player, right? You always need that person that's able to step up. We talk about that with even like a tax collector. It's a part-time position, but there's no one behind her. And we lost our last tax collector. There was no one there to fill the role. So it would be nice to have someone training already to be able to jump in that spot. So I think there's a lot of that we could do as a town. It would make sense. As Brett said, it may not be a financial gain right off the bat, but down the road through efficiencies, it may get people into the right spot, doing the right job. And then we don't have downtime. We already have a little in town hall where Cheryl is the assistant town clerk. So if Antonette's out, we can move Cheryl over, so those are the kind of things we need to do in a small town, because we just don't have, 50 people on the payroll, so.
Right. And I know this is on the, I think it was going to be on why am I drawing a blank? The Board of Finance agenda. Sorry, it's been a long day.
You've already wasted all those thoughts already.
Exactly.
So.
But one of the concerns is, and this will come up during your meeting, is that they are moving forward with trying to hire a finance director. That's the job that they have listed.
Who's
Um,
they?
The Board of
You
Ed.
said that, but I had a discussion with the Board of Ed chair, and I said, is there any reason why we can't change that description back from from a finance, the director of finance back to a business manager? And she said, there's no reason why we can't change that, because they already pulled that education piece
Right,
out.
no, and I understand, it's just what the job that's listed on the website and that they're taking resumes for is for a finance director. I mean, that's the role that they just gave a $15,000 increase
Right, but by
to-
taking that
in the budget.
qualification out of the description for the job, they think they can drop that salary back down to where the business manager was prior to, and change the title back to business manager. I said, we can't have, if you leave that as director of finance, and we want to put a director of finance above the director of finance, I mean, it's kind of confusing, so I didn't get any pushback from the Board of Ed chair on that.
So, I mean, I think I would venture a guess that we all are in agreement that whatever restructuring we do and consolidation, it can't add to the people that we already have. I think what you're right? Because that would be doing the opposite of what you're trying to do, is be more efficient. Like adding positions is not something that I think we're going to be able to sell
I think there is
to
one
the
position
town.
we're gonna have to add if we do that, because you're creating a new position of director of finance.
Yeah, so I think we're gonna have to be really clear how that in the end is gonna benefit the town.
I say there is gonna have to be, someone has to pick up the slack if you move the finance director, director of finance for the whole town. Someone has to pick up some of that slack. And let's say some of it's done by the accounting generalist and some's done by the admin assistant. Well, then someone's got to pick up those slack. That's like, so I think if there's anywhere we might have to do something with payroll, would probably maybe to go to a full-time position with the administrative assistant. That's,
So it might be just reshifting, and hopefully the dollars don't make a big difference in there, but there might be some different part-time roles, or
Yeah, I
add
mean, I think
someone,
it
you know.
depends on what goal you're going for. Are you going for better communication and more transparency and more efficiency? Or are we going for cheaper?
In my mind, I'd like the efficiency with the potential savings.
okay.
That was
Down the
the
road.
easy answer, Brett.
All right, so we, yeah. Any other discussion on this, or we can move on? I think we're in a good place right now. I think we've
Yeah.
discussed this out
Thursday, your meeting is?
Thursday at 8
Uh,
o'clock.
Can we put it on the agenda to discuss feedback from your meeting on the Friday?
You're the one that's on vacation that day,
But,
so we'll make that
I'm
meeting as
okay.
long as
I
you
would
would
be
like.
that interested to see how it goes.
So we're gonna talk about Infinite Visions that day.
Yep.
We'll talk about this that day, and we're gonna call for a town meeting.
If you
that day.
guys are okay with that, I'm okay. My
I'm
plane
okay.
does
I-
not leave till 2.
No,
I'm okay
fine.
with it because I do know that the Board of Ed is under a gun of trying to figure
Yeah.
out what they are going to do.
Yeah, I'm just interested in feedback.
And I think we have to have our the school closeout soon too, so I think there's a lot at play here.
Okay. Is there any discussion from the audience or online? I don't see any. Then again, I don't have my glasses on, so. Next, agenda number 8, speed humps. So I guess I can talk about this. So what we did was, I've talked to Donnie, we went out and looked and saw where we wanted to put these. These have been asked for 2 years by the people who live in the village. The original thought was 8 speed humps. What I've decided would be a better thing, and you can tell me if you agree or not. First of all, the Board of Selectmen, that was the prior Board of Selectmen, already voted and approved these. So that's been done. Unless you want to vote to overturn it, that's already been approved by a previous board. I was part of that board, and I was the one that pushed to have this done, because that's what, I'm not for or against speed humps. What I am for is listening to what the village, people that live in the village want. And the comment I think I made back then was, if they've asked for it and we don't do it, and I gotta drive by this little white cross every day on my way home because someone got killed, and if the speed hump was there, that may not have happened. I don't know if I could deal with that. Now, if we put the speed humps in and the villages say, we made a big mistake, there's way too many signs, it just destroyed the aesthetics of the village, we'd only driving over these humps every day. So then they can be taken out. I've got an RFP that went out to get a price per speed hump. Now, a hump, as opposed to a bump, it comes up on an angle, goes across flat and down. You can drive over them at about 30 miles an hour without ruining your car. I've talked to the state on this as far as what liability does the town have when it comes to speed humps. If the speed hump is built to spec, that you can go over at a certain amount of miles an hour, in this case, 30 miles an hour, and we have proper signage saying speed humps ahead, and there's a sign at the speed hump saying speed hump, and something happens to a vehicle, that means either the vehicle is traveling too fast or the vehicle wasn't roadworthy to begin with. So most cases, they side with the municipality, not with the driver. So as long as we cross our Ts and dot our Is. Now, I thought maybe the best way to put these in, and rather putting in 8 at once, I was thinking of putting 2 on upper, and I don't know which one's upper and which one's lower, but 2 on Upper Main, 2 on Lower Main. Main Street goes from the Red Onion all the way, comes out by the library where Chucky's used to be. So 2 on each one. We went out and looked where we could put the stakes. I tried to put them, they can't go near people's driveways. They can't go near anywhere there's a tie-in to water or gas. They can't go where there's any kind of where the water could accumulate. I tried not to put them near anyone's bedroom window because they're being boom, boom all night long. So
Right outside Mustafa's.
Because we had, when we had the 8, I got a lot of calls from those orange stakes, and it's right near my bedroom, it's right near this, it's right near that. So we went out and moved some, so with these 4, 2 on each side, we think we found some good spots. As far away from bedrooms, as far away from driveways as we can possibly get them. Put those in, let the town decide. Now, if you want the other 4, so it's twice as many humps, twice as many signs, twice as many thumps. So but at least it's a good sign because it shows we're listening. I saw someone mention that, it's been 2 years we've been asking for these things and they're still not in. The last 2 times they could have went in, we got the cold weather and it was too cold to put them in. We're nowhere near cold weather right now. So when we get the RFPs back, just going to let you know that the RFPs are back. If we decide that, yes, we'll go. Again, it's been approved already, but I just want to keep you guys on the loop on what's going on. There's orange stakes that have been put out today by Donnie because he's going on vacation on Thursday. So if you see them, they should be, I think there's 2 on each side of the road in 4 different spots on Main Street. Let me know what you think.
Just a question for you.
Oh, I have these. Look at this.
Again,
Oh, I think it's in
Oh,
our.
oh,
it's in our packet.
Oh, you wrote-
Christine is very good.
Yeah, no, I don't, unless somebody wants them. Do you want one? Marissa? No, okay.
So my question is, I know there were, last year during the discussion, there was always comments about people coming down fast from Wyosop Road.
Yes.
So is there not a benefit? You don't foresee putting one up somewhere between the highway garage and down
Oh,
below?
I think, and the second phase of speed humps, yes. There's 2 on Rocky Hollow and there's 2 on Wyosop. So I just figured we'd do half and half at this point. So put them on Main Street. I did get a lot of calls from the minister of the Baptist Church and one of the residents that lives near the corner, at the
Mhm.
stop sign. And we also had a woman right across from the Wheel Library and one farther down closer to Town Hall. So because those are the people I heard the most from, I figured we'd start with Main Street. But yes, the next phase would be 2 on Rocky Hollow and 2 on Wyosop,
If needed.
if needed. Or Maybe
Okay.
we can do 1 on Wyosop.
And then I think we talked about at the last meeting, the cost on it and where it would come out of.
Right, so we
Our
can,
budget.
I'm pretty sure we can come out of the highway garages, LoSiP funds. No, yes, maybe. Where's it coming out of?
So the RFP closes on June 30th. It's going to come out of next year's budget, and it would come out of either County Road or 2701 or 2702. LoSiP has to be part of the approved 5-year LoSiP plan, and it's not on there. So that's why it's not LoSiP.
Okay.
Okay.
So,
Okay,
but
so
we-
it's a new bid.
but we do have the
New bid. We're
signage.
doing a new bid because prices have gone up with the cost of materials.
We do have all the signs already because we purchased those last year when they were supposed to go in. And the humps last year were somewhere around $2,400 a piece to put them in. So to put 4 in, we're looking at about $10,000. So it's not like it's a bank breaker. Did you give them the one with the shoulder, the hump descriptions or no?
No, it's just the map.
Wow.
And are they yellow?
They have to be painted. No, they're just tar color, but there's gonna be orange, yellow paint on them though.
They have to be tar colored.
They're not yellow because he's yellow, you mean?
Yeah, I just, in certain towns, you see them in the whole thing.
He's
yellow,
gonna
so I was
put,
just checking.
no, they'll be diagonal, and they won't be the V shapes that like this. They're not gonna be that, it's just gonna be diagonal lines across the top.
And any kind of reflectors on there like in other areas or no?
Not sure. Can't say I'm a speed hump expert.
I am totally in favor of starting with the 4 and going. I gonna make a prediction that I think that we might end up staying with just the 4.
Okay.
But I'm glad that we're finally doing it.
I am too, because it shows that we're listening.
Yeah.
And that's what we've said as new administration, that we were gonna listen, and I think that's
But
one
I
thing
mean,
we've done a lot of.
Just making observations, especially, it was one thing when there were not a lot of people in downtown, but now that Chinook has gotten so popular and people are sitting on that front, sidewalk and they're milling about there, it is actually scary how fast some people go through town. So I'm excited.
There was
for-
an awful lot of pushback about that stop sign that went in.
Oh, I know.
And and now if you ask the people, especially the owners of Chinook, or Carl Johnson in particular, he likes the fact it's there because he
Yeah.
can back out of his spot without getting
Yeah.
hit. And because you have people stepping off the curb in
Yep,
front of Chinook,
exactly.
so. And that stop sign's actually made people stop at the other two stop signs, believe it or not. So just-
And what, did you say it was 4 signs for each speed bump? So one prior, one at the speed bump
One,
on each side,
one when
obviously.
you enter the road saying speed humps ahead, and there's one on one side of but it's a double-sided sign that says speed hump.
Oh, okay, so it's double, so you don't have to have one a little bit before, one
No,
coming the other way.
No, it's right at the
Okay.
hump. If you
That-
go
that
down,
w- That's what I was concerned about, is all of a
Yeah.
sudden we have,
if you go
I
down to
agree, that's a lot
Billings
of
Lake, they
signs.
have speed bumps on Billings Lake, and you'll see that there's a sign right there at the bump. Okay, is there any other discussion on speed humps?
just what was the closing date?
June 30th, 12 noon.
Okay, minutes from the June 7th,
So
2022 meeting.
I will make a motion to approve the Town of North Stonington's Board of Selectmen special meeting on June 7th, 2022 at 7:30 PM as written.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor of approving the minutes from June 7th, 2022 as submitted, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, next meeting, we have a special meeting, or excuse me, public comments. We lost, I missed this last time and I got in trouble. Any public comment? Any public comment? Oh, perfect. You have to go to either one. Now, just push it down once, no,
The button on the side.
Power button.
push it
Yep.
down once.
All right, push down.
Now
I think
tap
it's
it.
It's on.
All
It's
right.
on, you're good.
Are these speed bumps?
Oh, one
removable?
second, your name and where you live.
Okay. I am Noah Slit. I live downtown Wheeler. Junior in high school.
Great,
about
thank
to be
you.
a Senior. First question is, are these speed bumps removable if need be? What is like, how are they made?
So they are removable. It's not like, so if you've been down Billings Lake, those are rounded bumps with double face tape and,
Yeah.
spikes in them, basically. These
Yeah.
are not that. These are built on the road. They're made out of asphalt. They're about 6 feet wide on the top. Is that Joe?
It's Joe.
All right, so about 6 feet wide at the top, they come on an elevation. They can be removed if we decide that we made a big mistake. The signs can come out, we could scrape those things off and they can disappear. But they're not made to, we're not gonna, like the ones on Billings Lake we put down in the summer to discourage speeding on that road because
Yeah.
people are swimming, and we pick them up in the winter. And the bumps on Billings Lake don't work well with snow plows.
Yeah.
So these humps, you would be able to plow right over them, and an emergency vehicle could go 30 miles an hour over them, so it wouldn't really slow them down too much.
Sounds good. Another question is, what was the main thing that provoked these? Was it mostly complaints?
Yeah, so mainly it was speeding. The village, people that live in the village tend to know each other, and they had one vocal leader who put together a survey, sent it out to all the people that lived on any of the main roads in the village. I think there's maybe about 80 people or so.
Yeah.
And overwhelmingly came back that they wanted to reduce speeding, and the number one way that they would agree to is through speed humps. There was other thoughts about dropping the speed limit to 15 miles an hour. But people don't drive 25, why would they drive 15? We did do a couple of things that I put in the speed. If you've been in the village, you see those speed signs saying you are now going this fast.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Those speed signs go on when you hit 20 and they go off when you hit 40. The reason they go off at 40 is because that way you can't drive by it at 85 and take a picture and say, look, I got it all the way up to 85, like sometimes it's happened on the one on Wyosip Road. So
Yeah.
these automatically go off. And then we also increased police presence over the last 3 or 4 months, giving out more warnings, some speeding tickets, just to let people know that the police are there, but they can't be there all the time. We have 2 resident troopers and we have someone comes in and watches sometime on the weekend. So It made some difference, but I did hear from some residents that thank you so much for your effort. However, we still have a lot of speeding in town, and I was invited to sit on one of our residents' front porch for like an hour and a half on a Sunday. I think I saw 3 cars. I actually saw about 45 cars.
Oh,
80% of the cars were speeding, and probably 50% of the cars drove through a stop sign.
oh, interesting. Oh.
I wouldn't have believed it if I wasn't sitting there.
Okay, I believe that. That answered my question about tickets and caps. Now this is as this has been 2 years, and why is it like it seems kind of like doesn't cost much? It's a very heavily approved. Why is it?
I'm sorry, didn't hear you. So are you asking, it's been 2 years?
Yeah, why has it been so long since?
So I
changes
think
been made?
2 years ago was because there was a divide on the Board of Selectmen on who wanted and who didn't.
All right.
And also, I think with the highway department, there was people in the highway department that weren't in favor of putting them in. So because we had such a mixed group, there was a lot of bantering, and the next thing you knew, it was October and it was too cold to put them in because they're made out of tar. When it gets to be, around November, it gets cold, we just couldn't do it. Then it kind of fell by the wayside the next year, started perking up again towards the end of summer. Again, we had, there was a mixed Board of Selectmen on who wanted and who didn't.
Yeah.
And then the big hole back there, we actually had them, and Christina remembers, we actually had the guy booked to put him in. He was supposed to start on a particular day.
All right.
And the first selectman canceled it because he wanted to be able to explain to the village people how many signs it would take. If you had all 8 speed humps, there's something like 21 signs that go with it.
Oh wow. Okay.
And he didn't want, he wanted to make sure the townspeople knew what kind of signage, because obviously the village would look different with 21 additional traffic signs. It's
Of course.
it's usually, it's called sign pollution. We get called back on that sometimes too. So that's what happened then. So this time, being a new board, that we like to think of ourselves as better listeners, we decided to listen and start with maybe 4, see how that works. And if it goes great, then we would do the other 4 if needed, or get rid of the 4 we put in if they don't work.
All right. Do the village residents have any particular opinions about the signs? Do they think it should be there, or do you think it like kind of degrades the aesthetic?
So do they have, I don't think anyone in the village likes to see additional signs, but they know to put them in, and for the town not to have liability,
Yeah.
we have to put them in per what the code is. That,
Yes.
so if it says I have to have a sign that says speed hump ahead, so you're driving in the village, you come through Red Onion, you're going 45 on Route 2, you hit Main Street, you have
Yeah.
to slow right down.
Yeah.
And then if I don't say speed hump ahead and you're going 45 and you hit it and you
Yeah.
damage your car, so you're
Yeah.
going to come to the town hall and say you owe me for whatever happened to your car. But if I have a sign that it says slow down, there's
Yeah.
a speed hump ahead, then it's up to you to pay attention to the sign.
Yeah, that sounds about good. I don't have any other questions actually. Why was it so particularly controversial with the previous board?
So why was it controversial? I think because we all sometimes are independent thinkers and we
Yep.
have different reasons why we do things. I think there was no, that's why I think there was people that didn't want to clutter this village up with additional signs and things like this, like the humps. My opinion is, you heard me say to Nicole, is I'm not for or against speed humps, but I am for listening to what the people want. If we get everyone up on, so here's one example. So Dennis, you know where Dennison Hill Road is?
Yeah.
Have you heard about the charter strips?
No, sir.
Okay, you're the only one that hasn't heard. Okay, so
Oh,
This-
actually, never mind. Those are the ones in the middle of the road, if I recall, right?
yes.
Yeah, I've driven on those. Yeah.
Okay, so they went in there without, we didn't know the state had planned on doing that, and we stopped them before they
Yeah.
did the 5 roads that were scheduled to do.
Yeah.
We've heard a lot of feedback, and now I'm working to try to figure out how to get rid of this chatter strips without a large expense to the town.
Yeah.
And there's different ways we're looking at it. One way is just to dig out, with a milling machine, dig that all out and put tar in and
Yeah.
replace it. That's the $20,000 bill that's not in the budget right now. We also have an 8-year plan where we do a rotation of roads,
Mhm.
and that road's scheduled for 2024. So I've been talking to Donnie Hill, the foreman, about can we switch it with 2023 and move it up a year? And I've
Yeah.
told some residents, we can get to it. It might not be as soon as you'd like, but it is a possibility we can get to it sooner instead of later. But that way, that would come on the budgeted monies.
Okay.
So we have heard the issue and we want to act on it. So
Yeah.
whenever we have a group in town that lives in a particular area that has an issue
Yeah.
and they come to town hall with it, we want to at least listen and see if we can do something to fix the problem.
Yeah.
And
Having
that's what
driven.
happened with the speed humps.
Okay. Yeah, having driven that road is very narrow with this with the shadow strips in there, but
I'll
So-
record you as anti-chatter strip person.
I don't quite drive there in that part of the road enough to have an
But
opinion. But
but it's a narrow road and,
yeah,
and most people tend to drive towards the middle of the road unless there's traffic coming the way.
yeah.
they go up. But
just
there's also
safer.
potholes on the sides.
Okay.
So if you travel on the side, you get two holes bumping through potholes so
Yeah.
either way, you're losing out either way. And then if you got somebody walking on the road,
Yeah.
that's another issue. So,
Yeah.
yeah, we know there's definitely an issue up there,
Mhm.
but I'm just using that as an illustration of how we're trying to listen, and that's what happened with the speed humps.
All right. Yeah, sounds good. Aside from that, I don't have any other questions.
Well, thank you. You know what? Thank you for being, and thank you for asking the questions. I
Yeah,
love it
of
when we have
course.
students come.
Yeah.
If you're here early, you would have led us in the Pledge of Allegiance, but you weren't here, so.
Yeah. It was a little bit troubling. Come and didn't really exactly know if it was here over there. I didn't really see any cars too. We didn't, so it was kind of hard. But
Yeah,
we're
so we
fortunate
sneak
about it.
in the back door. That way we can sneak out the back door.
Yeah.
But thank you, Noah, for coming. I haven't seen you in a while. You're getting taller since our last
Yeah.
time. So
Yeah. It's been a while.
still playing baseball?
Oh yeah, just finished that up and umpiring now a little bit at the Pawcatuck.
Oh, good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you all too.
All right, come back in. Anything else from the,
Joe Gross, go ahead and unmute. I turned your mic off and I turned your camera off. You can turn them back on if you want.
hello, Joe?
Just hit the unmute, Joe.
Joe?
Joe, can you hear us? Hit the unmute.
So while we're waiting for Joe, why don't we just,
Go ahead.
Did that unmute?
Did it. Go ahead.
No, I just mentioned I'm not hearing too well, the conversations. As a matter of fact, I'm standing in the doorway with my tablet up to my ear. So if you don't mind, I'll just take my hand down and I'll stop down tomorrow and see what went on at the meeting.
so Joe, you weren't able to hear us very well?
I hear you once in a while, but no, not anybody else. Like I say, I don't think it's you guys. It may be just a tablet. I'm not sure. I'm not into these things, but
Did you hear anything? Did you hear anything that Brett said?
no.
Brett, can you repeat everything you said? So, all right,
We
Joe.
did- We did have that complaint.
At the
regarding our
last meeting.
So I don't
Yeah.
know if our.
Yeah,
mics turned up.
it's probably a good thing I didn't hear him, huh?
No, it was great. Well prepared. So, no, yeah, stop by town hall tomorrow, Joe, if you need to, and we'll work on
Yeah.
that. Make sure, maybe we're not close enough to them, or maybe we weren't, I'm not sure.
No, so I just let you know I'm interested, so I noticed there's only about 3 of us out here, but we're still interested in it. But I'll check tomorrow and I appreciate it. You
Thank
guys
Joe.
have a good evening.
Joe, if you watch the recording, you'll be able to hear probably, at the recording, you'll be able to hear the whole thing again if you want to.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. It's me. I don't know what the hell it is, but I'll just check tomorrow and I appreciate it. Just to let you know, we are interested, and I was surprised there was only 2 other ones beside myself that I could see was,
There are people here in the audience, just to let you know.
okay,
Thank
all
you.
right. I thank you. I take my hand down.
Bye-bye. So, number 11 is our next meeting. It's Friday. Nicole, we know you're on vacation. What do you want to do as far as timing on that meeting?
I'm whenever is good for you
We'll
guys.
do it strictly as a Zoom meeting, so we can do it from our if you want. And, yeah, what time do you want? You're gonna be enrolled at 2, you said, right? So do you want to do something at 9? Is that too
That's
early, too late?
completely
What do you,
fine. I mean, 9 is when you were gonna do, I think we had decided on I'm very conscious of.
No, I
Joe's-
think we're good. Bob's gonna call Infinite Visions tomorrow and we'll cancel the 9 o'clock
Okay.
pending that they.
All right,
Nine
then
work-
9 is fine.
9 works.
Yeah,
for
So
me,
let's
too.
do 9 o'clock. That gives me a chance to get in and get situated also, so.
Okay. Do you want it to be strictly Zoom or do you want it to be hybrid? No one's in the room.
Well, I was thinking, why can't I just do it from my office? Why do I have to?
You
know?
can, I just
Yeah,
did-
so let's do it as a Zoom meeting. That way, because she's gonna be remote. I can do it from my office and Brett can do it from his place of business also.
I might just come down to town hall. It's easier.
I'm not quite sure if you saw the eye roll.
Oh, I saw the eye roll.
So he's gonna watch the film now. Watch the tape and see. All right,
Make
so,
some nice memes of
all right,
that.
so
eye
9
roll.
o'clock on Friday is our next meeting, and can I get a motion for adjournment?
Motion to adjourn.
Second,
Thank you. All in favor?
aye.
Aye. All right, thank you for attending. Thank you for attending.